good morning, good afternoon, and good evening around the world. Welcome to In the Moment with Paul Sisler. It's been a heavy minute there. For those of you that have been on here before with me, I used to have the red herring effect, and I am now in the moment. And the red herring effect talked about politics. And I know I took a break there for a while. My wife had cancer and she passed away back in January. And I was grieving pretty hard. And I started going into Twitter spaces and I went into the writing spaces. And along the way, I came across the talented Kornelia Blackmore. And between her and a multitude of other writers, I was inspired to keep writing. And not only am I writing another nonfiction book on the medical healthcare system, I'm also writing I'm also writing fiction, and I have four works in progress, and hopefully they will be finished up soon. But in the meantime, I would like to welcome Kornelia Blackmore. Hello, Cornelia.
Hi, how are you, Paul?
I am excellent. How are you today?
I am fan-fucking-tastic.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So let's get this thing a rolling.
Sweetness, let's
In the
go.
moment, this segment's called the Vellum. And vellum means parchment. Uh, if you were to look it up, it would be parchment made out of lambskin. And it's what a lot of writing was done on a long time ago.
Mhm,
And that's why this is called the Vellum.
mhm.
So Cornelia, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, for those of you that don't know and are new, hi, welcome. My name is Kornelia Blackmore. I am a self-published author, audiobook narrator, plus-size model, video game streamer, and I also do tarot card readings as well. But that's like, more for fun and just like needing to help people spiritually speaking. So, hi, nice
Oh,
to meet all of you.
that is excellent. That is excellent. Spirituality, that's definitely something that I'm actually starting to relate more to, especially since the passing of my wife. I've become way more spiritual.
Mhm.
Um, Tell me about where you were born and raised.
So I was born and raised in Columbia, Maryland, and I guess I'll also give you a little backstory about my parents. My mom, she is from India, and my dad is from Baltimore, so he's also from Maryland as well. Pretty much born and raised here, lived here my whole life. The only other time that I traveled was when I was a flight attendant, and that was very short lived. But yes, I did domestic flights. That was the only bit of traveling that I ever did.
Oh, nice, nice.
Yeah.
Of course, Baltimore, Maryland, that's cold in the wintertime.
Oh my God, it's so freezing out here. It's cold. But listen, I honestly don't mind the cold weather though. But I think that's also just because I am from Maryland, so I don't really consider it cold unless it's like under 30. I don't know. I don't know.
See, now I'm originally from the Midwest, Davenport, Iowa,
Mm-hmm.
and Iowa gets very cold. You get that
Mm.
minus 10 degrees, minus 40 wind chill factor. And I used to say that, oh, I don't mind the cold. But then I've lived in Mississippi, I've lived in Florida, I have lived in Nevada, and now I'm living in Southern California, down here in the desert on the San Diego perimeter. And I don't like the cold anymore. So I'm going to stay where it's warm. Now, you said you were born and raised in Maryland.
Yes.
Through our discussions that you and I have had and all that,
Mm-hmm.
um, you had told me that at one time you were homeless.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to share that with people and tell us a little
Yeah.
bit more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So during the time that I was homeless, it was from 14 to 19, so about 5 years. And basically, the interesting thing about it, as far as like how it happened and to my understanding, um, was really just because the what the hell is his name? The landlord just didn't want us there, and because he didn't want us there, it was it was just more of like a kind of like a get the fuck out type of thing. Like there was no room for negotiation at that point. And during that time was when I found my gifts, rather. It was from needing to survive. It was from, you know, it's just interesting because it's like all the stuff that I do now is really like because I needed it to live. You know, I needed to read, I needed to listen to music. You know, I had like a little broke, busted computer to which me and my sister, we made anime video game, music videos and stuff like that. You know, all of these creative things that we use to kind of keep our mind occupied. So that was really the gift in the experience. But the rest of it, between like living with thieves and con artists and, you know, people that were just down on their luck, you know, those people ended up becoming my family. So it was a very interesting experience. It wasn't neither good or bad. It was like somewhere this weird position in between both. I think you understand what I mean when I say that, because it wasn't all
Yes.
good and it wasn't all bad.
Yes.
So yeah.
Well, I myself, I've been homeless twice, so I know what it is. I know the life. I know the suffering that a lot of people go through. It's one of the things that I talk about in my book, The Red Herring Effect. So, and again, that's for another time.
Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
now could you oh wow, we got a nice comment here. Cornelia is wearing the cat ear headphones. We had a pair of those.
Yes.
Those are so cute. I love them. What inspired you to write? Where did that inspiration to put pen to paper come from? Because for me, it was I saw how things were going politically, and that's what inspired me to write my first book. And after that, I kind of lost it. I didn't want to write anymore. And you, along with a few other writers, inspired me to put pen back to paper. You know, so I've had a couple different inspirations. So, what was it that inspired you to write, or is there a multitude of times that you had inspiration to write?
So my journey starts, it's interesting because I really do love and appreciate this question, because it's basically asking, like, again, so what made you interested in writing? A lot of it had to do with, you know, during the time that I was homeless. I started out as a fan fiction writer. To those of you that don't know, yes, I'm about to shout out my fan fiction. So if you want to read how awful it is, feel free, because it's so teenager and angsty and whatever. It is, what is it? I did change my fanfiction.net to K Blackmore. I think I recently changed it because I wanted people to know, yes, this is like my bare bones. This is where I started. And writing during that time ended up becoming a form of self-expression, because at the time, you know, there was so much happening, you know, during the time that I was homeless. There was stuff happening behind the scenes with my parents that I didn't understand, you know, because I was the teenager or the child in the relationship. So I didn't know, you know, some stuff was happening, like, you know, with myself. So a lot of it had to do with not feeling like I had a place to share, or not feeling like I had a place to really open up and delve deep into my emotions and, you know, really share my experiences, because at the time no one was listening to me. So I was like, okay, if no one's listening to me, then I might as well just go to the pages. The pages is the only place that isn't going to judge me. It's not going to tell me that I'm wrong. It's not going to tell me any of those things. In fact, I could just create a world where I exist and I belong, which a lot of that has to do with me being born mixed, and that's all cultural stuff, which I also put in my books as well. So we can get into that later.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Now, I've heard through the grapevine that you do a little poetry. Do you have anything that you could read for us?
Yes. Yes, I do. And again, I'll mention this because I said this to you, so I'm mentioning this to everybody else who has, like, who I've read my stuff to. A lot of the people that like are heavy into poetry, thank you, because any other time I wouldn't consider my work poetry. So this is just my shout out to y'all, like, who I interact with on Twitter Spaces and whoever else. Thank you guys for telling me that this is poetry, because I never thought it was poetry. Now I'm gonna read. Okie dokie. Where did I put it? See, it's like right here in my notepads, literally. Like all of it is super short. It's all on my notepads. Okay. I was born with the heart of Mother Teresa. I was forged with the spirit of Sun Tzu. So what does that make me, if not both a healer and a warrior? Then what am I? That's just one of these,
Beautiful,
for example.
beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you.
Love it, love it.
Thank you.
Now, along with being a writer, writing a multitude of books,
Yeah.
writing poetry. I also heard that you did some modeling.
Hmm.
Would you like to
Yes.
share that?
Absolutely. So my modeling career that started what? So I'm 32 now. So that started maybe about 10 or so years ago, give or take, roughly some change. That actually had a lot more to do with needing to prove my dad wrong. Believe it or not, that was what birthed it. It was my immediate contempt for just saying, like, you know what, F you, like, you're wrong. I'm going to be great. So, out of that need to kind of prove him wrong was when I was taking up all of those photo shoots and stuff, but I wasn't confident. So, I had met really dope photographers and makeup artists and all of that. And just being in that industry to be creative through clothing and fashion, I'd always been, drawn to that. Again, the creative artistic aspect of it, right? But now whenever I do modeling and photo shoots, a lot of it is mainly for promo. And then the other is just to say, hey, I would love to be a model on a book cover, because that's essentially like my goal. I rarely ever see models that are over a certain size that market to a specific genre. I've seen like maybe one cover that was like a genie and she was like plus size, like she had wide hips and she looked stunning to me. And I'm like, we need more of that. So now when I do modeling, originally it was just kind of the FU to the community because they told me I was too big. This is before Tessa changed the industry. So that was my first photo shoot. And now I've just kind of fallen back into it where I'm like, yes, I definitely want to be on book covers and change the narrative as far as, what beauty is or what it should look like, depending on the respective genre.
Nice, nice. And I'm proud of you. I tell you, there's a lot of uh, insecurities thrown out there. For
Mhm.
those that are on TikTok, check out Jax. Jax has done a video that's called it's I know Victoria's Secret, where it's an excellent song. You need to check it out. She basically talks about how, hey, Victoria's Secret is an old man in Ohio, I think it is, that makes clothing for women.
Mhm.
It's 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 amazing to me how society has allowed certain things to make people feel insecure and control them through products and
Mhm.
insecurity. It's sad
Yeah.
to me.
Mhm.
I'm glad you did your modeling. You're a beautiful woman. Keep it
Yeah.
up. You're an inspiration to many.
Thank you.
Now, with that said, for
Yes.
those that don't know, Cornelia, as we've discussed, is not only an author, but an author of a multitude of books.
Yeah.
Below is a list of what she's written that can be found on Amazon Kindle and Kindle Vella. Um, Check them out. And the one book that I don't have on this list is the book that we're going to talk about today, Truth and Dare. Now, I read this book.
Yeah.
It's a good book. I really,
Thank you.
really liked it. Um, my question to you is there's four main characters in this book.
Hmm.
There's Phoebe, Caleb, Aries, and Yumi.
Hmm.
Now, my first question is, are you Yumi?
Nope.
No.
No, there are certain aspects of me that is Yumi, but not the whole of it. Because okay, I was about to. I'll let you ask the questions because I can go on a tangent and answer questions about the other stuff. But go ahead.
Not a problem. Not a problem. Um, the characters, obviously, I mean, in the book it says that they're not, compared to anybody fiction. They're fictional characters. They're
Oh
not
yeah.
supposed to be about anybody else.
Yeah.
So, but I know from my own writing, okay, when I'm developing a character,
Hmm.
that character is either about somebody that I've encountered in my life, and
Hmm.
again, I may not give an age or a physical description of this character, but in relation to the personality of the character,
Hmm.
it's somebody that I've encountered in life, or at least a part of their personality. Because of how you describe your characters, I feel like those characters come from the personalities of people that you know, and they kind of resonate with you. Am I accurate with this, or is this just complete Cornelia imagination?
Okay, now I will go into detail about it. So, a lot of my stories throughout the years have been birthed from my inadequacies, my weaknesses in writing, believe it or not. And one of them at the time was that I couldn't write short stories. Like for the life of me, I could not write short stories. And because I realized that I couldn't do that, so I was like, all right, well, let me see what I can come up with. So I took the one bed trope, which is basically the trope where people go on a trip and they're like, there's only one bed. What are we supposed to do? So I took that trope, and because I realized that I don't write anything happy, I do not. My work is all heavy, depressing, romantic stuff. And because I realized that this is also a challenge that I have, I actually took the inspiration from anime. Like I took the inspiration of anime from happy moments and sticking to specific character archetypes. So Phoebe to me is like the anxious neurotic type, whereas Aries is just the party animal. So I was thinking about it in the aspect of anime and how they have a certain like set of characters when it comes to telling the story. So again, I just took those. I took that inspiration because I don't have happy memories. I really don't. I don't have many happy memories. And then when I realized that, I was like, shit, this is a problem. And that was why I decided to write it. So that's the main reason I don't talk about it. It's because it was more of an issue challenge to myself. I had to literally fit an entire story in like less than 10,000 words. And I'm like, I'm a novel writer. I write paranormal and fantasy for the most part. Like that's my hub genre, and it's like 100,000 words. How you expect me to fit an entire story in 10,000 words? But it was great. It was a beautiful experience, and I really did enjoy it.
Good, good.
Oh yeah.
I enjoyed the book. Yes, it is a short book.
Yes.
It is. Let's see here.
Yeah, it's short.
It is 53 pages.
Yep, not that long at all.
53 pages.
Not that long.
It's a nice little read. Now, from some of the other works that I've heard you read, I was expecting, because it says a short romance novel, I was expecting some sex in this. There was no sex.
No. Mm-mm.
No sex.
I did. Listen, I wrote that as a deleted scene, though. I'll have you know, I did write it as a deleted scene. And I did not include it in the book. Because again, I can't write sweet and clean. So everything that I did with this book, I was attacking multiple things that I know I wasn't good at when it came to writing. And writing sweet and clean was one of them.
Yes, yes. Now, in this book, there's a game called Truth and Dare. Now, most people know it as Truth or Dare. Truth or dare, you ask somebody truth or dare, they say truth or dare, and then you put the truth or the dare out there, and they have to go through with it. But you did a little twist in this book.
I did.
So instead of truth or dare, it's truth and dare. So can you explain this difference?
I think Aries was the one that said it best. To which once I finish a book, I erase most of it out of my brain, and this one happens to be one that I erased from brain, so I may have to refer back to the book for that. And no, I haven't played it, and yes, I should. It makes for a great drinking game, by the way. I'm being honest. I did not I feel like most authors would know, like, once you finish writing, I just erase it from my brain. Hold on. Best friend or... Yep, there it is. Oh, son of a bitch basket. It's right behind that. Okay. What do you say? What's the rules? Here's how it works. I say, Yumi, truth, then ask a question. She answers, then she picks either truth or dare for the next person. Say she tells Caleb dare and has to do the dare. Now, if he backs out of the dare, someone else gets to dictate his punishment, and the same goes for truth. Simple punishments like drinking, loss of money, paying for something, shit like that. Literally the concept that I came up with, like on the fly.
I like it. I like it. And I found it, interesting. It's just like, wow, that's the way we should have played it when we were younger. That would have been a lot more fun.
That would have been a lot more fun.
So if we were to play Truth and Dare,
Yeah.
would your first play with me be a truth or a dare?
More than likely it would be a dare, but I feel like that's because we're daring individuals, Paul. That's because we're daring individuals, Paul.
Okay. All right.
Sorry. I'm having too much fun with this. Yeah.
No, this is supposed to be fun. This is the aspect that I didn't have when I did the red herring effect. I didn't. It was all serious. It was all monotone. It was all, even though I was throwing out a lot of facts. Sorry, it was boring, but for me, it was also a learning experience. And now that I've been on Spaces and I've met, like I said, great people, especially in the writing community, I've opened up a lot. My personalities come out a lot. I have more, I'm more comfortable speaking in, this aspect of things. And it's kind of funny and all that because prior to all of this, I was kind of, I had 20 years in the casino industry. I was a bounty hunter. I've, delved into a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
I've never had a problem getting up in front of people and speaking. But I also blocked myself off. I built up these barriers around me because I really didn't want people to get to know the real me. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of what I have deprived myself of when you get down to it. And a lot of people might say, well, you deprived other people of you. Well, no, I've deprived myself of letting people in to where I can get to know them better.
Mm-hmm.
I've only hurt myself with it. So the one thing that I really love about Twitter Spaces is that I really get to connect with a lot of people in a lot better depth. And I feel more alive now. I feel more alive. And, getting out on social media, when I wrote my book, my publisher said, okay, Paul, you got to get on social media. You got to get a YouTube channel. You got to get on Twitter. You got to get on Facebook. You got to get on all of these platforms. And I'm just like, what the hell? What? No. Well, you got to sell yourself, Paul.
Yeah.
So it took me like 6 months of researching how to do a YouTube show before I could even do it. And then when I did it, I was scared. Now here we are. I'm loving this. It's fun. Yeah. It's entertaining. It's, I'm excited about this. And I know the red herring effect, it was a good idea to begin with, but again, the whole thing was to promote my book. In the Moment isn't about promoting my book. In the Moment is about promoting everybody else.
I love that.
And that's what we're going to do here on the Vellum. So what people may not know, they might think that this is just me interviewing you. The reality is that everybody, Kornelia Blackmore, is the co-host of In the Moment, the Vellum. And that's what this segment's called, the Vellum. And we are going to be here every week, and we're going to be talking about different topics. We're going to be talking about different authors, different books, different genres. If you're an author, please leave a comment or go to my Twitter account. Down below, you'll see my Twitter account and my TikTok account. Go to that and DM me. And if you have a book, you're a writer, make sure you join our writing spaces. Come in, introduce yourself, maybe read some of your work. One of the things that I'm going to do on these different forums that I have is have authors come in and read part of their work. We're going to do some readings and stuff like that. Yes. So this is about promoting other people now.
Yeah.
It's about, there's a lot of people out there with a lot of talent. And what I find funny is that a lot of these talented people don't believe they have talent. They do. Yeah. You know, there's people that don't believe they have talent. And it's like, you just sat here and read me a chapter from your book, and I'm sitting here just drooling, wanting more, and you don't think you have talent? No, you're very talented. So this is what I hope to do with my YouTube channel in the moment is I want to help promote other people, other thoughts, ideas. For those of you that like it when I do politics, I'm still going to do politics. Oh, yes. I'm pissed off at our government and I'm coming at them. Okay. So we're going to address those things. Kornelia and I, we might even address some of those things in here. Poverty, homelessness, UBI. There's lots of topics to cover.
Mm-hmm. Oh, plenty. I was going to say, yeah, plenty of topics to cover. I've been drinking, y'all. Don't mind me.
and for those that want to contact Kornelia, there's her Twitter and her TikTok. Feel free to contact her. And let's go to the comments. If anybody has any questions that you would like to ask Kornelia or myself, please go ahead and put it in the comments and we will bring it up there. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for people to have questions for us, your books, are any of them traditionally published? Are they self-published? Are they both? Please explain to the people some of the formats that you've used.
Yes. So what I use, I'm an indie author. I'm self-published. I prefer to go the self-publishing route. Now, I want you guys to know that eventually I will query under a different pen name. But the main reason I want to do that is because eventually I do want to open my own publishing company where I am signing authors under me. And I feel that it is appropriate. This is just the way I tend to do things. I tend to just kind of jump in and just kind of do it myself. Right. And then I'm just like, I'm going to figure it out that way versus, going around and hi, like I have questions. No, like I'm just going to go in, like just go for it and learn that way. But the majority of my work, I do intend to have it self-published. Just because I am, as me and Paul have pretty much established, I am a very creative person to which not all of my ideas, I feel with some of the submission requirements that I have read might not fit what it is that, a literary agent might be looking for. Now, I am still keeping an open mind when it comes to that because I know, Paul, you've told me that I should query the Black Dragon Princess, but I'm going to hold off on that. I'm going to hold off on that. But yes, all of my books are self-published, and I'm probably going to be a self-published author forever. Like the majority of my career, just forever. If I got questions, I'll get in touch with a lawyer. If I have more questions, this is the terrible thing about me. I've been actually signed under a publisher to be like, I need to know your job. Tell me what you do in a day. I will follow you. Tell me what you do in a day. Because that's just the way I prefer to do things. First-hand experience always works the best for me.
Excellent.
But yes, I'm self-published all the way.
All right. I'm going to give a response to the question that I asked you in a moment, but I'm going to go to some of the people that are asking questions. We have Revolutionary Thinking. That's my friend Ariel. People on Twitter know him as Ariel's Ariel. Mm-hmm. He asks, where and when did you guys meet? I think it was probably back in about February, March?
Yeah, I think so. The majority of Twitter Spaces, I do believe, was like around February, March, if I'm not mistaken. I think so.
I think it was around February or March. It was after my wife had passed away. She passed away in January, and like I said, I was grieving, and I hadn't been in Spaces for quite a long time. I may have come in and out here and there, and I came upon a writing space. Kornelia was one of the people in this writing space, and she helped inspire me to go back to writing along with a couple others. There was Torch the Poet. He's on Twitter, and very brilliant man. Told me to start putting it down on paper, put it on paper. So I wrote some poetry, and there you go. So we met back in probably February or March in Twitter Spaces. Let's see. Here we go. We got another question.
So I was going to say, yeah, I think we have more questions.
Hello from Twitter Spaces. Hello, Zaldor.
Hi, Zaldor.
Do you think that writing is a form of self-development? Writing as a means to discover yourself? Is that what you've experienced? I'm going to jump on that one first.
Yes.
Yes.
Go for it. I
do think that writing is a form of self-development. When you start putting things down on paper, you have anger, you have frustration, you have grief, you have whatever the feelings are that you're feeling. You start putting those down, and then when you go back and you read it, you kind of look at yourself. And does my writing help me develop myself? Yeah, it allows me to get out a lot of my frustrations, a lot of my anger. I can put it into my paper. That anger, that energy is put into what I write. Happy moments, sad moments, whatever the case is. And does it help me discover myself? Oh, absolutely. I discover so much more about myself every day, and my writing helps with that tremendously. I have like 4 awesome poems. I truly didn't believe I was actually that good of a poet. And now I've got 4 remarkable poems that people just love. So yes. Writing as a means to discover yourself, it absolutely is. Kornelia.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was actually going through all of the questions. No, because like I said, we're getting really good questions. Thank you, guys. I appreciate all of the questions, really. And to Sonagani Brown, that is my mom. So I just wanted to say a quick hello. Hi, Mom. I'm so glad that you're here joining the stream. Thank you so much. Okay. So to answer the question, if writing is part of self-development, I consider it a yes. And just from my own experiences, the main reason for me, because I just went through a lot of shit in life. And for me now, writing is a part of my shadow work, which again, I'll go a little bit more into detail about that as far as what shadow work is, and how I've pretty much done it through the lens of writing. That includes creating characters to kind of figure out, my own thoughts, beliefs, and even biases when it comes to specific topics. So yes, writing is definitely for me a form of not just self-expression, but also self-discovery. Because truthfully, the more I write and, the more stories that I come up with, the more that I'm able to kind of find out stuff about myself that I didn't realize that was there before. Like, I never realized that I could write a character that is not as headstrong, that I can write a character that wants to like hide behind and like be the wallflower. I never thought that I could write a character like that, but being able to kind of tap into an experience that I completely forgot about, that I was able to be like, oh, okay, cool. Like I totally forgot about this part about me. So absolutely. I definitely consider writing as a part of self-discovery. Absolutely.
All right. I have another question from Desert Cavalier. Desert Cavalier asks, in your opinions, based on your experience, is writing full-time a viable career? You've heard the phrase, the starving artist. Writing, can it be a viable full-time career? Yeah, it can be, but it's extremely difficult. First of all, it costs money to get a book published. And if you're going to do it right, it's going to run you about 10 grand. If you go through a hybrid company, you might be able to save yourself about 5 to 6 grand. And again, you're doing all the marketing yourself. And the editing may not be done as well as what an actual hired professional editor might do. If you're going to query your book, your manuscript, the querying process takes a long time, and it can be frustrating. It can be disappointing. I know when I queried the red herring effect, I sent out over 1,000 queries, and it took me over a year to finally get published. It is a difficult realm. Now, if you're famous or you're a celebrity, yeah, you can go from being a celebrity to writing full time. Because someone like Penguin or Simon and Schuster, they're going to pick you up like that because you're famous, and they're going to sell 500,000 to 1,000,000 copies for you, and you can make a very good living off of that. Someone like myself, Cornelia, yourself, it's a challenge, and if you don't have something to back up, if you don't have something that you can rely on for income, I myself, I'm here on YouTube. I'm trying to monetize YouTube. If I can monetize YouTube, then I can sink more time into my writing and hopefully make some money off of my writing. So can it be? Yes. The likeliness of it, it's kind of like, what are your odds of becoming a professional football player when you're in junior high school, or you're a professional baseball player? It's really, really tough. Can it be done? Yes, it can be, but it's really tough. Cornelia?
So to answer the question, as far as writing full time, can it be a viable career? I first want to start off with saying absolutely. I do feel that it is possible because I don't believe in limitations. So it's from that perspective that I say, yes, it is possible, but or however. There is also the understanding of marketing. There's also the understanding of certain things. Now, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be the case if we would be traditionally published, but I can only speak from my experience as being self-published. And this is just a little tidbit for y'all, like for the writers and stuff that are tuned in that are listening, I have made more money on Kindle Vella than I have selling an entire book on Kindle. And this is just, again, my experience. And I think a lot of that has to do with readers' expectations of certain novels, especially ebooks being like really dirt cheap at that point. I've heard some readers that are just like, I'm not paying more than, like $1 or $2, like for an ebook, which I understand because I am one of those people. To which I agree with making my work accessible, but unfortunately there kind of falls into that in-between place where it's like, okay, what rate do I charge to make a living versus, what readers, expect to be charged, if that makes any sense. But if you're selling more than one platform of the same book, then yes, you have a higher chance of making money and having it be a full-time career. So I think a lot of that just has to do with like knowing your avenues, understanding market, asking questions and things of that nature. But based off of my experience, my answer is going to be you have to do a lot of work. You actually have to have a platform. You have to kind of continually network with people. Which is a huge part of the process. And if that's something that you're not willing to do, then it is going to make you a little bit more limited in as far as being successful, if that answers the question, or making it a full-time career, basically.
Very nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
Absolutely agree with all of that. Absolutely agree with all of that. And I have talked to a few people that are on Kindle Vella that they're making some good money, probably not enough to make a living off of yet, but as you get more books and you get more titles out there, it can add up. It can add
Definitely.
up. We have another question here. What routines or other rituals do you perform to keep you writing regularly? I'll let you go first this time.
Oh, I love this question. Okay. I do. I love this question. Thank you again for this question. So I am one of those people that has written something, if not every day, then every other day, for like maybe, a couple seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, give or take. I have written every day consecutively for at least 3 years. And also what I do to kind of time myself. See, I'm usually my own competitor. Like I'm not competing against other people. I'm competing against myself. So I think this year I do writing sprints with myself. So I believe this year's record was like 1.6 keywords in 30 minutes. So I do writing sprints with myself. The one that I had last year was 1.3 keywords. So again, a lot of that has to do with wanting to strengthen my my writing drafts, because the stronger the draft is, the easier it is, or the less work it is for me, because I'm self-published, to have to go back and do edits. It's just, it makes it a lot easier for me. So that just happens to be like one of the writing rituals that I do. I also write in my phone, even if it's just, a couple words here and there, just for like, I don't know, like maybe 5 or 10 seconds, give or take. And that just keeps me in the habit of writing, or at least keeping the concept of constantly creating. So then that way, if I need to pull it up on the fly, I can. Not that anyone would need it, but I just feel like I would, because copyright.
Ah. All
Yeah.
right. All right. For me, when I wrote the red herring effect, I would put Spotify on, put on some cool jazz, and just start writing. Um, for that book, it was nonfiction. There's a lot of research involved. It's, in one way, it's fascinating. In another way, it's extremely boring. You have to read a lot. With that book, I read over 1,000 case laws. I have like 200 some cited in the book. Um, Sometimes it gets, when you're writing a nonfiction book that's about facts, it gets really, really difficult to sometimes keep going forward, because you got to keep rereading things and rereading things. Now, in relation to the fiction that I'm writing, that's not so much routine or ritual. It's just a matter of, oh my God, I'm going to have TJ do this. So I've got to get to this point, and I just start writing. Or Donovan's now going to become this just hunk of a guy that all of these women are going to go crazy for, or in Blood Schism and all that. It's just like, yeah, it's a story about vampires and druids. So it's just like, oh, I can't wait to bring the druids in here so they can show their power. So I just get to writing, and bam, I'm just there. I just write. I just write. Let's see. TWA has a question for Cornelia. TPA, sorry. What inspired Cornelia to write such a short book? I've always been intimidated, ironically, from that. How did you get the bravery to do that, Cornelia?
Okay. So, believe it or not, guys, I actually have a list of my weaknesses in writing, like in just creating fiction, stories, anything. A lot of my stories were birthed from my writing weaknesses. So, for me, it was just understanding and realizing that I don't believe in limitations. Actually, the quote that I live by, and this is just my quote: life has enough limitations, writing shouldn't be one of them. And that's the writing quote that I kind of go by when it comes to creating a lot of my projects. So because I realized that this was a limitation, I was like, so we can't have this. So we're not finna do this. So quite frankly, I looked up, how many words that it takes to write a short story. I've had people tell me that I write my books like a screenplay. So I was like, oh yeah, this should be easy. But then I realized that I do a lot of showing and not enough telling. So I think the biggest struggle with writing short stories, especially for novel writers, is understanding the pacing between what makes a showing versus telling. We really do come back to that. And then the pacing of the overall piece. So again, it was just one of those things where I was like, this is just going to be a shitty first draft. At no point did I ever really intend to publish Truth or Dare. I had no intention of publishing it at all. I was just like, okay, this is just another random ass story that I wrote, in my notepad. Why not? Like, I'll just keep it. But after I realized that, I went through the draft and I read it, and I was like, you know what? The pacing is actually pretty good. And it's not like, I realized that I was like, I don't have to put that detail there. You mean like the reader doesn't have to see how this character moves and people still get it? Okay, bet. It was just one of those moments where I was like, okay, great. So a lot of it has to do, because Teepaw, I know that you're a writer, a lot of it has to do with just figuring out the balance between showing versus telling. Because novel writers, we do a lot of showing versus, screenplay or, short stories. It's not as much showing. So it's just figuring out the balance for you and what works in that regard. But sticking to the 10K word count, I'm gonna just let y'all know this right now. I cheated a little bit with writing Truth and Dare. I did kind of extend it just a couple, like 1,000 words or so, because I was like, this has to go a little bit longer. So anyway.
Well, I could never write a story under 10,000 words. It's just not going to happen. I have too goddamn much shit to say. So
it was so hard. It was so I'm not even gonna hold y'all. It was so hard.
200,000 words.
Oh my god. Wow.
10,000. I can't do it.
Bro.
Okay. We have another question here. We have another question from Sonia Gandhi Brown.
That's my mom. Hi, Mom.
Do you brainstorm the same time as you write?
Hi, Mom. Thank you so much. Don't listen, T-Paw. Don't laugh at me. Thank you. I appreciate the question, Mom. As far as brainstorming, so anytime that I start a story, I have a general idea. Even if it's not like fully fleshed out, I happen to be one of those writers. There's a couple of different writer types that we use in the indie author community. One of them is a pantser. And basically pantsing is, where you have a general idea, but you have written no outline, you have written no character outlines, development, plot, nothing. You just go in head first and you're like, all right, I see the scene, I'm gonna just write it. That's a pantser. And then you have your outliners, which are the people that end up outlining, their stories first before they start writing the scenes. Me, on the other hand, I just write the scene the way I see it. Now, in the midst of my process, there happens to be a writer that falls somewhere in between, which we call a plantser. 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 I just wanted to make that clear. I happen to fall somewhere within pantsing and outlining. So as I am writing the story, yes, I do brainstorm as I am writing, because I go in head first with whatever scene is coming to mind. And then afterwards, like as I'm writing, then I'm like, oh shit, this would be a good little plot nugget here. This would be a good little plot nugget here. So I put that like throughout my writing until eventually the story builds itself. Then afterwards, when I come out of the shitty first draft, then I go back, create a loose outline, and then go back in and write a second draft. So yes, I do brainstorm as I am writing. I just wanted to explain the different types of writers, so that way, like, my mom kind of knew and understood, like, that I am one of those people that fall in the middle.
See, now me, I am just simply a brainstormer. I have so much shit going on up here that I'm always in a brainstorm. Right now, I'm in a brainstorm. Okay, I'm running a million different questions. So when I write, my mind goes in 100 different directions, and sometimes I'm writing things down that are just ideas, and then I have to come back and then tell a story based on that idea. So do I brainstorm at the same time as I write? Oh, hell yeah. I brainstorm every minute of my life.
Yes. All the time, right?
Yes.
All the time.
Yes. Peace and Polly. Peace, Paul. Peace, sis. Thank you, Polly. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you for showing up.
My friend Asia, she came in. Paul Sisler, he's the one that wrote that book. There's a story behind that.
Yep.
There's a story behind that. I got called in for jury duty. And, you go through the process. You call the little number. Yes, we still need you. So I go in. I sit down. I wait for them to call me up. They called up the first group, the second group. I'm the first one that gets called up for the third group. And I get called up, and you stand in line. Everybody else gets in line. Then the bailiff leads you down to the courtroom that you're going to go to. And, well, when you get there, the bailiff says, all right, go up to the judge. The judge is going to ask you a few questions. So I go in. The judge says, name and occupation. And I said, my name's Paul James Sisler II. I'm a civil rights activist, and I wrote the book, The Red Herring Effect. And he said to me, you wrote that book? Yes. Dismissed. But anyways, there you go. I was escorted off the property. Um, but there's a little more to the story. We'll go into that another time. Let's see. We got some more questions here. Here's a good one. Does the story change while you are writing?
Yes. Yes, it does.
The characters, I hate to say it, but the characters tell the story. You know, once you create a personality for that character basically, you're sitting there, you're writing, and it's just like, wait a minute, no, that don't fit the character. No, what would this character do? And then, bam, there it comes. Is it the same for you, Cornelia?
Yes. Yes, the writing does it. The story definitely does change, but the purpose of me writing the shitty first draft, which if you've listened to my podcast, you'll know that's what I call it. And the reason I call it that is because I'm trying to figure out the theme, what it is about the specific story that I want to say. And then once I kind of figure out the theme of the story, then I'm like, okay, cool. Now I'm going back in with that mindset that this is the theme of the story and this is what I want to say. So that's the other reason why, although I do share the shitty first draft, I don't publish that one first. But yes, the story does change as I am writing because, just trying to figure out as far as like what it is that I want to say within the story and using these characters to tell that story. So yes, Paul, you're absolutely right. The characters do tell the story. Absolutely right.
Yes. Now, Granted, there are some underlying things that I want in my story that I still keep in my story. But as far as the direction that it goes, that can change from moment to moment. Let's see. Oh, my friend Bryce. Thank you, Bryce. You're my hero, brother. You're my hero. Okay. Love you, brother. Let's see. Veronica. That's why I didn't try saying it before. How do you get yourself back into writing after something happens that emotionally triggers you and you can't get back to it because you stagnate? Is this just me, or does it happen with you too? Go ahead.
Mm-hmm. So I recently went through a very traumatic experience where it took me out of my writing for a while. And then I just realized that I was like, damn, I really miss it, but where do I start? And for whatever reason, I just realized that I was like, damn, typing on my laptop is too intimidating. I can't write on my phone. And I mean, it really was that no matter what I tried or what I tried to accomplish, even with writing, it just didn't happen for whatever reason. So for me and my experiences, I realized that it had a lot to do with what was going on in my personal life. Again, that's why, it was a very traumatic experience that I recently went through and I couldn't write. So for me, how I kind of broke out of the slump, this was during the time that I did a lot of inner work. See, I turned to writing when I needed to work through any of the stuff that I couldn't make sense of, or I wasn't getting any type of help or whatever, what have you, or I just didn't know how to open up to anybody. So then once I kind of changed my perspective into thinking that, writing is supposed to be my safe space and that it doesn't have to be like pressure. Because, at the end of the day, you don't have to publish. You don't have to share. You can write just for you if that's what brings you joy. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't always have to be with the perception or the notion that it needs to be published when that might not be what you need to do. So if you feel, called to write, if you feel that it's best to work out, whatever emotions or whatever it is that you're feeling or going through writing, or if you try a different type of avenue when it comes to writing, like journaling. I've recently done journaling when it comes to my meditation and the tarot card readings that I do, because it helps me, again, stay in the practice of writing. We don't think of those things as staying in the practice, but it is, at least that's how I consider it. So.
Yes. Yes.
Good question, right? Good question. I love this question.
It is. When I was writing The Red Herring Effect, there was a lot of things going on in my life. And yes, I would have points of stagnation it was very, very difficult to get back into the writing. But I also knew that I was putting everything that I had into it. So I knew I had to finish that book. Now, after I got that book out there, I was trying to get into the YouTube and really get it pushing, and my wife was diagnosed with cancer. So that made it really hard to write. That made it really hard to do creative content. It took everything I had. And of course, as I've mentioned, she passed away. And then after she passed away, um, I went to a dark place. I didn't want to write. I didn't want to do anything. And my inspiration came from, like I said, people like Cornelia in writing spaces. Sometimes maybe just getting out there and hearing other people talk will help you.
Yeah.
Now, for me, when I get frustrated or something comes up that has me just wondering what am I going to do, I start putting it down on pen and paper. After my wife passed away, funds was getting really, really low, and my stepson and I were wondering what we were going to do. We put my house up for sale. We were almost bankrupt. I mean, literally, we were. If my house wouldn't have sold when it sold, within a month, I would have been in the streets. I mean, that's just how close it came to everything being turned off. And from that, I was able to write more poetry. I was able to get into my book because, again, some of the life's experiences, you relate to some of your characters. So life itself needs to be put into what you write, because that raw emotion that you're feeling when you're writing something, that's what makes the characters come to life, that raw emotion. So, and I know it can be hard to get back into the writing because the mental state that you go into, it's really, really hard to get out of that. I completely get that. And sometimes I hate to say it, you just have to push yourself a little bit harder and force yourself to write. And for me, poetry seems to be the route for me, that when I'm in that dark spot, I start trying to find, that I put that anger into words, into poetry, and it's like, wow. And now that anger that I had, I can now go back into writing other things. So, yes, it's hard, but it does happen. It does happen. It becomes difficult. Thank you. That's a great question. Veronica. I hope I say that right. We have another question here. Hold on. Going down the line, we have our friend Luke Legion Evans. Hey, Cornelia, how do you handle people who say your writing is too dark, such as your critics of Black Dragon?
Thank you, Luke, for this question. I really, really do appreciate that. What I've come to find out in my spiritual journey, in instances like those, that one, it is better to exercise empathy and understanding, because a lot of that has to do with anyone's negative emotions, opinions, objective biases, whatever, what have you. It has nothing to do with me and everything to do with them and what it is that my work incites from them. Because a lot of, and Luke, I'll tell you this, because I've read some of your work. Between you and me, I do feel that you are a brilliant writer. And as far as receiving the commentary that it is too dark, it quite frankly means that you have a gift, that you are able to incite emotions and different types of things within, someone's subconscious or unconscious self that, kind of forces them to have to face it. And I'll tell you this, it's a very uncomfortable thing to do. It is very, very uncomfortable. And because of that, I tend to respond or not respond at all. Really, I've come to find out that no response is a response. And when I do feel the need to respond to the best of my ability, because that's not to say I don't get pissed off, because I do. But I realize that when I'm pissed off and triggered, I choose not to respond. So always remember, no response is a response. And for me, I just tackle it with kind of love and empathy and understanding, and just I'm sorry that, whatever you've gone through in your life that kind of makes you feel that, this may be too dark. And that's fine. If that's not for you, then that's okay too. Like, if that's not the writing style for you, that's totally fine. But again, that's a projection. And that doesn't really have anything to do with me. I'm just here to tell the story the way that I see it from my experiences and just tell it that way. So just, my way of saying, keep doing your thing. Don't allow people to get to you, like that. Cause I've gotten negative feedback as well, especially when it comes to the Black Dragon Princess, saying that it's too Afrocentric or it's misogynistic and whatever else. No, like you can't get to a certain role until you talk about how dark it actually is. Do you see what I'm saying? You can't reach what it is that you're trying to reach. Like you can't get to the good unless you go through and understand, sift, decipher the bad. And a lot of people aren't willing to decipher the shadow or the bad or whatever else, or the evil or what have you, whichever term you prefer to use. So I just tend to deal it with grace and class and, just offer love and empathy and understanding to the best of my ability. And if I'm not able to, then I don't give a response.
Excellent answer.
Thank you.
Excellent answer. Well, and a lot of us, again, in a lot of the writing spaces that I've been in and all that, there's some people that have some really dark shit, man.
Yes. And it's beautiful. I'm sorry.
And I love it. I love it.
I love it.
My story, TJ.
Yes.
I talk about child abuse. I mean, I'm very graphic with it, but you also have to understand this is what is forming TJ into what he's going to become. And without that, the comprehension won't be there. So again, there's things that you have to illustrate, Next question, I'm going to take this one. I have a question. What advice would you give to someone that was writing a book but wants to turn it into an anime or video game? I have a book that I'm writing called Breathe. It's a dystopian, futuristic story. And when I started writing it, it's very, very political. It's about people that they're forced to work, and the only way they can get air to breathe another day is they have to go to work. And after they work their 12 hours, their tank gets filled with another 12 hours full of air. And when they leave work, they have 12 hours of air. Don't get too excited because you might breathe too much of your air. It might cost you a few minutes, but you don't get it refilled until you go back to work the next day. So I'm covering a lot of topics in this. And as I'm writing it, I see it as an anime and video game. So keep writing the book. When you get it published, and hopefully you can get it traditionally published, you just make sure you have it in the contract that any things, movies, anime, video games that come from it, you get the credit for it. Feel free to follow me on Twitter and DM me. I can talk to you more about that, but keep writing the book because the book will lead to that anime video game. Kornelia, go ahead.
Yes. So first off, hi, Josh. Welcome to the show. I appreciate you in this question. Now, between you and me, we already know that we are the nerds of this whole thing. So when it comes to anime and video game, it depends on the concept of the story. And the only reason I say that is because not every story concept works for its specific platform or format. So, because again, for example, if you had like a really good storyline, but then you'd have to figure out, well, shit, where do I fit in gameplay? Versus if it works well for an anime, which is going to be more story baseline. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think a lot of that has to do with figuring out your story. Where do you feel that it fits within its respective format? And I feel like once you figure out the story, then it's going to make a lot more sense. The rest is going to click. And then if it doesn't, send us a message. We got you.
Exactly. All right. Now, there are quite a few other questions. Let me see. I'm going to pick one out of the many here.
Thank you.
Let's see.
I want to pick my sister's question. Ronnie Gandhi Brown, that's my sister. Hold on.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, T-Paul, that's a good question. Okay.
Okay. Which one?
Ronnie's question.
Ronnie's? Okay, let's do Ronnie's, and then we're going to call it a day. Let's
I know.
see.
That makes me
Where
so
do you draw inspiration from when starting a piece, and how do you ensure to keep your ideas fresh and different from previous works? That is an excellent question. Go ahead.
That was why I picked that one. First off, dope question. Hi, sis. I love you. Thank you for showing up. I definitely appreciate you. As far as where I draw inspiration from, I quite frankly draw it from everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. Um, Nature, anime, video games, horror movies, TV shows. Like I draw inspiration from just about everything, especially different story concepts and all of that. And I tend to just mash it together. So, for example, the Black Dragon Princess, the Asadi Dragon Clan, as far as like their locks being symbolism to their badges as a warrior in their lands. I took that from the Predators, which again, you wouldn't have known that if you didn't do research, or at least, were a fan of the Predator series. So I took that element and added it to my story. The same thing with the dragons. If you've ever seen Naruto, the anime, the Jinchuriki, I also took that concept as well within the spiritual realm. So a lot of it just has to do for me. That's where I find a lot of my inspiration from really just about anything. And then the rest is staying in tune with my childlike imagination and just saying like, hey, that could be a story. Hey, that could be a story. It sounds ridiculous to most people, but the more ridiculous it is, the better the story that it's going to be. At least for me. I go with zany and crazy, but most of y'all know this about me. So, and as far as keeping it different from previous works, I don't really focus too much on those, because then if I did, it would take away from the theme of the specific story that I'm trying to tell or that I'm focused on at that moment in time. So that just, that's pretty much my answer to that question. Paul, what about you? What do you think?
Um, I get my inspiration from a lot of different things. Um, I would say politics is probably my biggest inspiration. All of my stories that I'm currently writing are related to different topics in politics in one form or another, whether it's um, uh, religion and the abuses of it, racism, systemic discrimination on a multitude of levels, poverty, homelessness. Um, all of my ideas that I get for my writings, and even though it's fiction, there's underlying aspects related to that. Blood Schism is covering a lot of different things, especially with the LGBTQIA communities. The main character is an intersex character, and with TJ, that is going to go into demonology and has to do with abuse. So um, um, there's a lot of underlying things. So my inspiration comes from that, and then of course other movies, Soylent Green, um, Terminator. Just you start looking at a lot of the baselines and ideas that these movies have, and you look at the underlying politics with them. That's where I get a lot of my inspiration. A lot of it, again, like I said, is political. And then I guess the empathetic and humanitarian aspect of me is what really gives me the drive to go forward. Because when I see a lot of the brutalities that go on in the world, and of course, I would love to see them all fixed, as I imagine that most people would. My writing kind of hints at that, but I kind of do it in a dark way. So my inspiration, I guess, comes from the world today. So
I was just going to say, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have so many experiences, like with just us, being human and having, you know, different perspectives. And I feel that writing is a reflection of that. And really, it's our ability to kind of relate and to connect, to other people through storytelling, which is actually the other reason why storytelling is as old as it is, especially like culturally and all of that as well. So yeah, storyteller forever. We had missed a couple questions, and I'm sad that we don't get to answer these, but we do have to get the show moving. So I guess I'll just answer T. Paul's question really quickly as far as how do you get yours. How do you handle criticism to writing, whether it's dark, light, or has any particular triggering themes, and how do you get yourself out of slumps if you land in them? The thing is that I don't publish for other people. So I just want to try and answer this question as quickly as I can. I don't write for the purposes of other people. In fact, I feel that I'm just writing really because it brings me joy. So when I do get, I do write triggering themes in my books. And that's the other reason why I do put the trigger warning there. So that way, again, tread lightly, be aware that you're going into a minefield. But as far as criticism and feedback, it's just the understanding that my story was not meant for them and that it has nothing to do with me. We tend to project a lot of what we are unwilling to face inside of ourselves. And this applies to me too. I've done the same thing. So the rest is just not, taking what resonates and then disregarding what doesn't, right? Like when I do tarot card readings, I tell people all the time, take what resonates and disregard what doesn't. It's the same thing with publishing and writing your stories. What does it serve? Who is your audience? And if this person that's speaking to you is not your respective audience, then quite frankly, it doesn't have anything to do with me. So that's just my 2 cents on that.
All right. Now, real quick, let me give a quick shout out again to Kornelia. You can go to Amazon and you can find her books, Truth and Dare, The Blood Covenant. She has The Crowning, We Got Fake, Carmina, The Black Dragon, The Rippling of Waves, and Uninvited Misfits. So please check out her books. Please jump in there, buy a few. Like I said, I own Truth and Dare. It's the first one, and the only reason why I bought it first is because it's the only thing I hadn't heard her read in Spaces. So there we go with that. And then as a quick reminder before we close out, everybody, we will be here again next Tuesday, 1 o'clock. This is the Vellum, and you're in the moment with Paul Sisler and Kornelia Blackmore. And Kornelia, thank you for being a wonderful co-host.
Thank you again, Paul. It's always a pleasure being here with you. Thank you so much for the opportunity, and to the people, that showed up. Thank you. Because really, at the end of the day, we could write all the books that we want. We can make all the podcast shows that we want, yada, yada. But none of it is real without any of you showing up. So I definitely appreciate every single one of you. Thank you so much.
Exactly. Thank you for the support. It is greatly appreciated. Yes. We look forward to seeing y'all here next week. And like I said, I'm working on some other shows. Hopefully we can get quite a few things going. If everything works out right, tomorrow I will be on here with Shadow Fox. And
I'm going to be here for that.
Yes, it'll be called The Flow. I still got to work out some details. I don't have a time yet, but I will tweet it out. So make sure to check out Kornelia's Twitter accounts, and make sure to check out my Twitter and TikTok accounts. Again, as I close with every time, be kind, be happy, and may good things come your way. Thank you, everybody.
Hi, guys.